It's been 6 years now since alternate realities went up to that big back issue bin in the sky. Though much has changed, our community endures. Now, on the brink of a new day, my holiday reunions with the AR gang near their conclusion. This is the LongAR Halloween. Welcome to the LongAR Halloween, a My Comic Shop history tale. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato. This is part 12, Labor Day. And joining me for the penultimate installment of our year-long series is first-time guest and former Alternate Realities customer, Pete Dwyer. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me, sir.
I apologize that we didn't have a sexier holiday for you. I know Labor Day kind of falls on perhaps the tamer, more pedestrian side of the holidays.
That's okay, given when we're recording this. I thought it was going to be a different month with even less holidays. I'm like, it's going to be Flag Day? So, this holiday's recognized. I'll take it.
Yes. Well, we had to get a little creative for the previous episode for the month of August. I went with the birthday of former Alternate Realities employee Steve Ryan. So that month was Ryan holiday. August was real slim pickings.
Yeah.
But here, yes, we do have definitely a recognized holiday. I suspect the answer to this is no, but I'll ask it anyway, just in case. Do you happen to have any particular connection to Labor Day? Any family traditions or trips that you tend to take around that time of year?
No, sorry, I can't help you. It's a 3-day weekend that I look forward to till I realize, oh crap, the summer's over.
Fair enough.
Sorry, I can't help you there.
No, it's all good, but I appreciate you coming on for our Labor Day installment here. And I'm so happy to finally, have you on here. And I apologize that it's taken this long. I, as you know, but I'll share for our listeners, I filmed a relatively brief interview with you for My Comic Shop documentary back in 2010. And we did it outside of the store. And I ended up not using it. The sun was in your face and the audio wasn't great because we had the cars whizzing by. That's all on me. Yeah. And of course, it ultimately came down to as well, just time in the movie and trying to get it as lean as possible. Though you are represented in the film via B-roll, but I always felt bad that we didn't have your interview in there. And then, when I was telling the story of alternate realities on this podcast, I was trying to incorporate as many different perspectives, and we did have others who were there to kind of talk about the customer perspective. But I never forgot about you, and I always wanted to be able to do this, and so I'm so glad that we can have you on here now. And I also kind of love that we're 6 years into this podcast, and here we have a new voice on the show. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, I always viewed the interview we did as a learning experience for you. I don't know if I had the sunglasses on or if I was squinting. It was like, geez, I probably made for bad video. You learned, because I think the rest of the interviews were inside after that. So I was a learning experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And I do appreciate, you being so accommodating with that. And yeah, that is kind of, in a sense, that is the case because, we did it outside because I thought like, oh, okay, like this will be something different. Like just to add to some variety, because all the other interviews basically were in the shop. So I was like, well, that'll be kind of cool to do it outside. And then, quickly realized, well, sun in the interviewee's face and cars whizzing by, that combination doesn't totally work.
Right.
So there's a bunch of stuff that I want to catch up with you about, because I mean, you and I really have not spoken in quite some time. But before that, there's a question that I've been meaning to ask you for years.
Okay.
For years. And I could have just done this over Facebook or over text, but I was like, no, I'm going to save this for the podcast. So well, you and I are both fellow April birthdays, just as a quick side note. And that's my segue into what I want to ask, because I've noticed that when you wish people a happy birthday on Facebook, whether it's myself or someone else, and you're always on top of that and it's always appreciated. But I've noticed that you will write happy birthday with a period at the end of it, not an exclamation point and not an absence of punctuation. You are actively choosing a period. And I've been dying to know if there's a reason behind that.
I honestly, I never realized I was doing it. You pointed it out in one of your thank you messages. And I was like, oh, wait, I do that? Holy crap, he's right. I do that. And the only thing I can think of, it's just, I guess the grammar that was drilled into me by the nuns in grammar school. And then it's just, I guess, a little bit of my personality. I'm just very low key, quiet, period. I'm not shouting happy birthday. That's the best I can get. I never realized I did it, till you pointed out, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years ago. I was like, holy crap, I do that. Wow. So I wish there was more meaning behind it. It's just, best I can get is the nuns and a low key personality is how we ended up here.
That's hilarious. It's funny because I think the first time I clocked it, I think my gut reaction was probably like, oh, like, is he mad at me? Or is, like, because there, and again, I know this, I know you well enough. I know this is not the case. But the period, it does kind of give it that passive aggressive air to it. And so, but then I noticed that you did that with everyone else. And that's when the curiosity grew. And I'm like, oh, okay, like that's his thing. Right. And I did a little run of episodes on, for my patrons, about a year ago, almost at this point, with Sean Hendricks from Fat Moose Comics.
Fat Moose, right.
We had this whole bit about birthday greetings because Sean is a fellow fan of the television show The Office. And I don't know if you're familiar, but there's this bit on The Office where Dwight wishes a character happy birthday with a banner that says, "It is your birthday, period." Mm-hmm. And that's how Sean wishes everyone happy birthday on Facebook. He writes, "It is your birthday, period." And then he likes it, which added another layer to it that I was intrigued by. So he and I had this whole conversation, and this came up in that chat. And I was like, when I get the chance, I'm going to ask Pete about this. So I appreciate you you indulging me on that.
Yeah. No problem. I mean, I'm glad you pointed it out because I never realized it.
It was, and again, I don't mean to make you self-conscious about it. It was just so fascinating to me because I was like, again, typically you see an exclamation point. If there were no punctuation, that I would kind of get too. It's like you're saving yourself a keystroke. It's just happy birthday. You boom, you bang it out. But I was like, no, like he's actively, consciously choosing that period. So we can finally put that mystery to bed, I guess.
Yes.
We'll back up, and I do want to get into your comic shop history generally and how you came to AR and, all the stuff that, I've talked about with the other crew members as they've come on over the years. But I'm curious about that, but I'm really curious about your comic shop present. Because over the past year, right, I've been having a bunch of AR alums on this podcast, and we've been catching up. And unless I'm mistaken, at least of the people who have been on the show, and I think this is true even of most of the larger group of AR, you're one of the few who is actually still reading and buying and collecting comics regularly, right?
Yeah, I still have the bug or the disease, however you want to label it. Yes.
And what's your go-to shop these days?
Oh, Spider's Web, Paul's shop.
Yes, and I mean, generally speaking, like what's the experience been like for you there?
It's been great. I mean, I'd have to break it up pre-COVID and post-COVID. Pre-COVID, I used to go like on a Wednesday night, and Paul might be gone. I end up having conversations with Andrew normally because poor man's a Star Wars fan, so I have another thing to talk to him about. So we'd talk about that. Or Gene is a pretty big Star Wars fan as well. After the pandemic, it's or as things were kind of partially opening up, it's like, I don't want to go on a Wednesday. There's too many people. So, now I'll go like a Friday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon. So sometimes I'm the only guy in there because that slice of time, I'm the only guy. But, still, Paul's always happy to see you, still it's not the same as they are. Nothing against Paul or anything, because I'll see the people there, hanging out like we used to hang out. It's, for lack of better phrasing, this is their clubhouse, always feel welcome, hell, sometimes it's a reunion episode. I'll run into Sean McInerney. I've run into Steve Odo there. Hell, I've run into Brian Claudio. Actually, I've run into both Brians. I ran into Brian Claudio once and ran into Brian O'Day a month ago, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago there. Most likely it's Sean that I run into there.
Right. Do you reckon, I mean, those are obviously, regular members of the AR
Yeah.
crew. Do you run into, again, like some of the general customers who maybe you don't know by name, but you recognize them? Do you see a bunch of those folks too?
Um, Now, no, because like I'm going at off times,
Right.
kind of on purpose. If I went back, as things open up more, maybe I start going back on a Wednesday. Maybe I would.
Right. And yeah, just for a quick recap for our listeners here. So Spider's Web is in Yonkers, New York, a bit south of where Alternate Realities used to be located. And it is owned and operated by a former customer of ours, Paul Barrero. And he's been on the show before. And yeah, he's a great guy. And that's where the largest concentration of AR refugees ended up, because Paul opened a good bit before AR closed, and he and Steve remained on good terms. It wasn't like, oh, he's going to open a competing business. They were, very friendly throughout the process. And I know Steve gave Paul a lot of advice and things like that. And so when Steve was closing and a lot of the customers were asking like, well, where do I go now? I know he referred a lot of people there. I think that as I was pondering this, I think that, I know some folks did end up at Oh Yeah in Harrison. I think
Right.
that Oh Yeah was a little off in the timing of their opening, because they opened after AR closed. So
Hmm.
there really wasn't an opportunity for Steve to give that shop as an option.
Right.
And
As a shout out.
yeah, so I do, because I've gotten the sense, and just from my own experience being at both places, though I'm not at either place regularly, that the majority ended up at Spider's Web.
Right. Yeah, I was at yes. There was like what a afternoon with Steve or pizza with Steve or something. That's like what 3 years ago now. That was the first time I was there. Wonderful shop. You know, um, just the way the cookie crumbles. I'm closer to Spider's Web.
Yeah, I know. So right, exactly. I know the location is a big factor, because you live in Yonkers, right? Yeah,
Yes, I do.
gotcha. Well, it's funny because I was actually thinking about that time at Aw Yeah, because yeah, it was, yeah, we did an afternoon with Steve Odo, and I don't know if that was the same, because we also did a Kickstarter like launch party there too, but I think those were separate events. But in any event, I
Right.
do remember having a chat with you at one of those events at Aw Yeah, and it was a good few years ago, because at the time we were talking about picking high schools.
Right. So it'd be 4 years ago. Yeah.
For,
Wow.
and that's what I wanted to ask, because I was like,
Yeah.
I think the high school would be over now. And is that the
Yeah.
case?
He just graduated last Tuesday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations to him.
Thank you.
Well, you
Yeah.
mean a few months ago? Because if this is September, so it was
Oh
a few
yes,
months
yes,
ago.
yes. Sorry. Yeah. Back in the middle of June, he graduated. Sorry.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations. And what's he up to next?
He's headed to Georgetown.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And where did he go for high school? Was it Fordham?
He ended up at Fordham Prep.
And how was the experience?
It got better as it went along. Freshman year was a little rough because I guess some of the other grammar schools send a bunch of kids, so they kind of have their pre-built circle. He was the only kid from his grammar school going there. It took a while, but by senior year, he had a good. I heard someone call. He found his tribe, and he had a good circle of friends, and I think he enjoyed it. With all the craziness with COVID, it was actually driving him crazy when, he couldn't go in. So as soon as, senior year came, well, you have the option for hybrid. I'm taking it. Couldn't even finish saying, or you could, I'm going in. As much as they'll let me go in, I'll go in. So.
Gotcha. Well, I'm glad. That's great to hear that. That he found his way, and I know my heart went out. I mean, obviously, so many people affected in so many ways by the pandemic, but specifically on the educational front, it's like, yeah, my heart did go out to seniors in particular, and especially and to kids like in middle school as well, like those earlier, especially the earlier years where they still kind of like might not totally even know what's going on and have to navigate all of this. I know, I'm sure that was really tough.
Yeah, like do kindergarten on Zoom. Are you crazy? But like I was lucky. Had when all the stuff happened, I had a junior and a freshman. My daughter's in Ursuline. So, they were, you know, mature enough that, you attend class, you do your stuff. I didn't have to hover over them as I was trying to work remote. So, from that perspective, I was lucky. But yeah, people with younger kids, it's like, wow, how do you do this?
Yes, I mean, it was definitely tough having a toddler, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, we didn't have to, do Zoom school and all that stuff. So,
Right.
props to everyone who dealt with that. The thing that, oh my God, that always stood out about our conversation regarding high schools in this Westchester area was the cost. Because I went to Iona Prep for high school in New Rochelle, but that was, I graduated in 2005, quite some time ago. And when you were telling me what the tuition is at Iona and Fordham and some of these other schools, I was shocked. I was shocked. Like, not college prices, but like in the ballpark.
Oh, you don't want to see the college prices then.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. Well, it's funny because I mean, as you know, and I think regular listeners know, I mean, I work in law school admissions, so I do have a sense, but
yeah, you would.
But certainly, like at our law school, I mean, like we do. I'm not pitching the school, but it's like we do try to like price ourselves relatively affordably. Like our regular tuition is less than a lot of like undergrad, tuition. So, yeah, I don't envy the position that you're in and that you've been in. Because it was just staggering some of these numbers.
Yeah.
But that's great. I'm glad that everything worked out for him. So he graduated. He's off to Georgetown, and your daughter is still finishing up high school.
Yes, she's going into her junior year.
Cool. Very
so
nice.
We just finished getting all the college mailings. They're just going to start again.
Yeah. I wish you luck.
I'll need it
with all of that.
Thank you.
And, it's funny when you mention yourself working from home, and it's funny you spend so much time with someone, but what do you do? I don't think I know. Maybe I've forgotten in all this time.
I'm in the IT department of a company and been there for 16 years now at this point.
Wow.
So, yeah, a lot of it's boring stuff. It's I work on back end systems. But I'm good at it, and they keep paying me. So,
yeah, that's not nothing. That's awesome. And I want to jump back to the comics because we talked about like where you get them, but even beyond that, the fact that you're still reading and collecting. Like I said, I mean, most of the really like the inner circle of the AR group, pretty much gave up. Is sort of the sense that. That I've gotten and has been confirmed and certainly in these interviews, these episodes that we've been doing. So, I mean, I hope and assume the answer is yes, but I mean, are you still enjoying comics, or is it kind of more out of habit? Where do you fall on that?
I'm still enjoying. I would say maybe I buy the big tent pole or summer, crossover event out of habit, because the last couple I've read, it's like, I shouldn't have wasted the money. But, more regular series is usually I do still enjoy. I think I'm getting to the point a little bit where I'm venturing a little bit off of superheroes, and maybe I'm buying a little less. I might try a bunch of stuff and like, yeah, no, that works. So the list is a little smaller than it used to be. So it's evolving slowly, but I still enjoy it.
Good. That's great to hear. I mean, roughly speaking, how many titles are we talking about on your pull list?
Maybe somewhere between 15 and 20, depending on what miniseries is out, what ended, what hasn't restarted. I'm just kind of guesstimating it's probably about 20 a month.
Cool. When Steve announced that he was closing, was there ever a moment where you were like, maybe this is a good place to stop, or maybe this is a good place to switch to trades or switch to reading digital? Or were you, from the minute he announced, you're like, okay, I got to figure out where I'm going to go?
Well, what's funny is the thought occurred to me, maybe a year or two before he closed, like, well, if Steve ever closed, maybe I just go digital. So, how much room does an iPad take up? It'd be much less crap. And then, 2 years later he closed, and I was at the decision point. I was like, no, I like For like my novels, I definitely have an e-reader. I found that's easy. You have the one thing, you have a whole library. But for the comic books, I still like the physical experience. Um, Recently, for some of the book clubs, it's just been easier to get it through whatever it is, Comicology. So like that's grown on me a little bit. Like so for all those readings, maybe I'll do them on the iPod or iPad, excuse me. But still for like the weeklies or floppies, I still, have a giant stack that I still collect.
Understandable, and I think that's something that probably a good number of our listeners identify with. I mean, I've talked about this before on other episodes. I mean, I really held out for a long time on the digital reading, and I, over the past 2 years at this point, I guess, like really did become a convert. But at the same time, right over my shoulder here, I have like all of my Superman trades, and I'm staring at the rest of my graphic novel library across the room here. So I guess, ultimately I like a mix. Although, yeah, for myself, like I'm not reading anything at this point on a monthly basis. You mentioned the book club, and we've talked about this. This has come up in other installments of the LongAR Halloween, but Mike San Gregorio, one of our crew members, I know he's been organizing this book club for quite a while now, right? A couple of years at least.
Yeah, I think it grew out of, well, the store's closed. What the hell are we going to do? I think that's where it grew out of. I caught up to it maybe a year or two after it was going.
Yeah, that's cool, and it's something that I take it you've been enjoying.
Yes, in the old world or the before times, it was an excuse to, get out and socialize and, we'd talk about comics, or we'd start talking about comics, and where we ended up, who knows, during the COVID times, like everything else, it's gone on Zoom. And then, again, it's a break from everything else. It's not as good as going out and enjoying company, but it's better than, not talking comics.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool. I'm still on the email list, and because I was there for the first, like the earliest meetings of it, and it just got to the point where I had so much stuff going on, and then podcast wise, it's like I've been reading so much stuff and talking about so much on the podcast that it's like I didn't have it in me for more. But I love that it's there and that you guys do it. I think that's awesome. Is that the main way that you've kept in touch with some of the AR folks, or have you kept in touch with people otherwise?
That's the main way. I mean, as after the store closed, and it's weird to think we're past 6 years now at this point. We would, there was like two groups. There was the book club, and then there was like, we would still do dinners, not as often, not as many, so that's how I would see, other folks. COVID went and blew that up, but now that things are better, maybe we'll start again. That's the two ways that I see the old gang, or just randomly, I'll run into people.
Yeah. Do you, and I don't say this like with any expectation, but do you like reach out to people ever? Like, I mean, just to sort of catch up or anything like that?
I'm like a quiet person. Like, if I see something on Facebook that someone might enjoy, I'll toss it to them. Like there was an Autobot picture or something, threw that to Mike. Sometimes a Star Wars picture, I'll throw to like Drew or O'Day, because I know they're probably bigger Star Wars fans than I am.
Right.
So yeah, it's just kind of my nature to be low key. Like if there's nothing stopping me from like, hey, we should get together. It's just haven't done it.
No, and again, like like I said, I don't say that in any critical way. It's not like, hey, why don't you do that? It's just, but I ask because, in a lot of these discussions, like it's that idea of like, oh yeah, like I would go to a dinner if someone organized it, but it's not necessarily something that people are actively, trying to do. Like we're always happy when we run into each other, but it's just a fascinating piece of it. The lone exception, well, I guess myself in doing episodes like this, but besides that, the main exception is Rich Roney. In so many of these conversations, Rich, Rich, I think, I mean, well, I know he literally picks up the phone and calls more people and really makes that effort to keep in touch than really any of the rest of us. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, because I know we do all miss each other and we enjoy when we're together, but I don't know, maybe that just is like I don't know, a natural thing, or just a sad fact of life. I don't know, but that the motivation to actually take those steps to try to put something together or to connect. I know it's not always there.
Yeah.
You know, and San Gregorio with the book club, I got to give him a shout out as well, because I do think that's cool. As far as going back to the comics though, so if memory serves right, you're a big like Batman and Green Lantern guy.
Okay, well, definitely I'm still a Green Lantern guy. Batman, I remember I was telling Andrew over at Spider's Web, it's like, I'm Batmaned out. I've had enough. You know, it's just what they're doing these days. It's like, it just makes no sense. It's like, I was eventually, after, geez, there's a pile of 6 of this series on my nightstand. I'm not reading it. It's time to drop it. So.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, because I always remember, like if we were chatting at dinner or at the store or something like that. I know you were a Batman guy. What's your favorite Batman era or run?
Probably my favorite, and it's not just Batman. It was the Detective Comics after Rebirth, where it was like I think they called them Gotham Knights, where it was like a Batman family. It was the Tim Drake Robin. It was the Spoiler. It was Cassandra Cain. I think they were calling her Orphan as opposed to Batgirl. It was Batwoman. Eventually, they brought in Batwing, one of Lucius Fox's sons, and they were like trying to reform Clayface. So that run, I loved. That's fairly recent. I mean, I love the Hush run, going way back up until the end, because it was a great story, and that made me realize it's hard to stick the landing. I don't know, maybe it's just hard for Loeb to stick the landing, but it was this great, it was this giant excuse. Jim Lee wants to draw Batman villains. Okay. But up until the end, it was really great. And then the end was like, this is what you came up with? The Court of the Owls, the early Snyder stuff, the Court of the Owls, the Night of the Owls, the Death of the Family, that stuff was really good. As the run went on, it kind of got silly.
So it's interesting, because I mean, everything that you're mentioning, with the exception of Hush, which is now going back almost 20 years, which is kind of crazy. But pretty much everything else is relatively recent. I was expecting, maybe stuff, because I know you've been reading. I mean, how long have you been into comics?
If you count Star Wars and G.I. Joe, since 1977. Traditional superhero comics, I got the bug late in grammar school. Right around Secret War, so that's 84 or 85. So, I started reading Marvel, didn't touch DC. And then, went into high school, and I had I'm in high school, I'm too cool for comics, so dropped it for a year. And then, what was it? Iron Man, Armor Wars. A friend of mine had one of the issues. I read that. I was like, oh crap, I'm back in. So pretty much straight run since 87 to now.
Gotcha. Very cool. I want to talk more about, your comics history and your comic shop history. I want to do a commercial break, but before that, I just want to say real quick about Hush, because Tom Darby and I, we did an episode of My Comic Shop Book Club a little while back on Hush, and I won't rehash the whole thing. People can listen to it if they would like to. It was a lot of fun, and this was the first time that I had gone back to it in many, many years. And sort of my overall assessment of it was, it really is great as an encapsulation of the Batman rogues gallery and supporting cast and overall mythology. So, and as someone who worked at a comic shop, and, it was always one of those books we would recommend to people, especially if they were new to comics or new to Batman. And rereading it all these years later, it holds up in that sense. And it's like, yeah, no, I see why this is still on those lists and why you would give this to someone, because it really does hit on a lot, of the Batman world generally. As a mystery, I just don't think it's really there as a satisfying mystery.
Right.
So, all right. Well, we'll take a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk more about your comic shop history, how you got to alternate realities in the first place, all that good stuff. So we'll be right back. If you enjoy this show, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. I also hope you'll consider joining my Patreon community. The support of my patrons enables me to produce this podcast, and patrons get rewards too, including exclusive episodes, advanced listens, and more. Sign up today and get instant access to the back catalog. Visit patreon.com/Anthony Desiato. Thank you to all of my patrons. I truly appreciate your support. The Hive Comics and Games is an oasis of nerd fun and events in the heart of Odessa, Texas. Whether it's comic book superhero stories or role-playing in a dungeon, the Hive is where to be. Come tap your mana and face off against the top Magic the Gathering players in West Texas. Hive carries a majority of new comic titles each Wednesday and has all of your favorite titles in their back issue section. Follow them on Facebook at The Hive Comics and on Instagram at The Hive Comic Shop. Film lovers and filmmakers should check out this family of film festivals: Brightside Tavern in Jersey City, Hang On to Your Shorts in Asbury Park, Point Lookout on Long Island, and In the Cut in Bloomfield, New Jersey. Submission information for filmmakers, as well as details about the festivals generally, can be found at filmfreeway.com. Also, be sure to listen to the Hang On to Your Shorts and Cullen on Film podcasts, available via a shared universe network. All right, and we're back, still here with Pete Dwyer. So, you were mentioning before how you got into comics and a little bit of the arc of your comic book reading and buying history. So how'd you end up at Alternate Realities? Like, what were the first places that you got comics, and then how did you end up at AR?
Okay, well, I'm old enough that I used to buy comics in the newsstand. They did, in my neighborhood in the Bronx, they didn't have enough room for the spinner racks, so it was just like the magazine racks up on the wall. So, that's how, somehow or the other, my mother saw that, oh, they're making Star Wars comics. I need them. All, first grade version of myself. And actually, I missed a couple, and this is 77. Like a comic shop opened in my neighborhood. And like they put, this will probably horrify some people, like they put the comics in the bags and they put them on the window so you could see them. And there's like two of the Star Wars ones that I missed. And I was like, Mom, can we go in? No. And then one day I walked by and it's gone. I was like, crap. The next day they were gone because she went into the store and got them.
Aww.
But, the store closed 2 weeks later. So I never got in there. I didn't, first grade, I'm like, what, 6 or 7? I wasn't, I didn't realize what I missed. So the really early stuff, so late 70s, early 80s was just tracking down Star Wars and G.I. Joe on the racks. Eventually, when I got into Secret Wars, I found whatever was on the rack at the time, I guess 11. So I got that. And then Dragon's Den was in its original location down all the way in Yonkers. It used to split space with the pet store. So it's half pet store, half, comic book, store. And back then you used to walk in, you used to get that smell of old paper. So, I got a couple, I think it was like a Christmas gift because it was the black costume introduction, Secret Wars 8. So, that was more than my budget could handle. Like, okay, we'll buy it for you for Christmas. So I had to wait, a couple months to get that. Eventually there was a comic store that stayed open in my neighborhood. So that's where I used to get them. I think back then they used to come out on Thursdays and Fridays. I remember going on Fridays to get new comics. And then as we got into college and my friends got cars, we would go to where Dragon's Den ended up. We'd go there. How we ended up at Alternate Realities was one of our friends was looking for a summer job. So we're just going up Central Avenue, trying to figure out where I could go. And my friend Andy Cullen, out of the side of his eye, is like, hey, wait a minute, that's a new comic store. We'll have to go there on the way back. So, we went off to, I think it was KB. He was trying to apply for a job. We came back, and, it wasn't, alternate wasn't even officially open. It was just Steve, Kevin, and Gene just like setting up. But, they would sell. And what hooked us, we were college kids. It's like, oh, for every 100 you spend, you get $10 credit. What? I get money back? That's beautiful to a college student. So, and what's funny is my friends bought stuff that day. So they were like 33, 34, 35. I didn't buy anything. We went back the next week. I was like 168. Like, wow. So yeah, I was around long enough to have an original number, as opposed to eventually Steve purged everything. I think I ended up as 19 was the number I had for the remainder of the time. So yeah, it was just my friend needing a summer job, and the hook was, hey, you get some money back. I'm in.
So you effectively shopped at AR for its entire life.
Yes, I kid around with my wife that I've known Steve longer than I've known her. Now it's only by a year, but still, it's a true statement.
That's really cool. I mean, that's again one of the reasons why I'm happy to have you on here, because like you said, I know you can be kind of more on the quiet or the reserved side, but it's like, man, you've been there, and you've been part of the group, coming out to dinner, long before myself. Yeah, that must be a really interesting perspective, having gone through all of the iterations, the various the physical layouts of the store, the changes in ownership, the changes in Steve's mood.
Yes.
I mean, there are a lot of directions we could go with this, but I don't know. Is there a favorite, favorite era of the store or ownership configuration or anything like that you're like, that was like my favorite time at AR?
I would say, I don't know if I have a favorite. I mean, as long as like Steve or, Brandon, were, either owner or co-owner, it went through, I don't know how many permutations. I was always pretty happy there. Like, but to pick like one error, I don't know if I could.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there were, I don't know, 8 or 9 different ownership configurations. There were folks over the years, people who had been owners in particular, I think, who had suggested like, oh, I guess you really do like a break, like, I don't know, a chart or something, laying out all the configurations. And I'm like, I don't know how interesting that really would be.
Well, it would appeal to a very small audience, like pretty much, the people you're interviewing would be like, oh, so that's what it looks like. Your wider audience, I don't know how that would play.
That's always been my gut. Like, I'm really grateful for and proud of the fact that, the show and the documentaries have like appealed to people who don't know our store. But, I've gone to lengths to try to make this, something that people could connect with. And yeah, I feel like that would be a little bit too much.
Yeah, probably. I'd follow your gut on that one. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so you were part of the store for so long. At what point did you start going out to the dinners, and how did that come about?
Well, it happened, my friend, so I said there was that group of us going out that day, to help my other friend. So my friend Tony Zayas, he was, I don't remember which one, but he bought on that first day. Somehow or the other, and I don't know the full story, him and Brandon got on thick as thieves. So, Tony would go and hang out at the store and go to dinner. They're like, hey, do you want to come? So, that's how I would come. I mean, and this, I don't know how well I'll play with the wider audience, but you'll get it. It's like, I remember there were times we would go to dinner on a Wednesday, where by the end of the story, even my wife knew, you don't call Steve on a Wednesday. You leave Steve alone on Wednesday. But there was a point in time where, you'd finish up on Wednesday and we'd go to, what's the name of it? Rice Star, next to where the Pathmark used to be.
Yeah. Rice Star is still there.
Yes, it is.
Crazy. I've never been. I've never been, but I always see it, and I know that you guys used to go there.
Yeah, so I mean, like, as to when that started, geez, I don't know. But what's funny is my friend Tony, he ended up moving away, and what he hooked me up with, I kept going with. So eventually I got embedded enough to be a regular. So as things changed over, I was still, hey, you want to go to dinner? Sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, so yeah, the go. I mean, it's not like there was ever like it always had to be one place, but typically we would fall into this routine, and so there were certain places that you would kind of go over and over. Did you have a favorite of all the various gathering restaurants?
Um, Probably the Pizza and Brew, and maybe
Yeah.
that's because just we went there the most. I mean, if you go back far enough when Brandon was involved, there was the Hartsdale Gardens. Hartsdale, it's it was by the Best Buy up in Hartsdale. I'm not sure what it's called these days. We had a lot of dinners there too. Um, I guess just sitting in the back of the old Pizza and Brewers that train car or whatever they were trying to do. That's I remember a lot of the dinners. As we went on, we ended up in Mickey Spillane's, where I think that's where we cooked up the term Desiatoed.
Yes, there was this run where I would get my food last. Like it happened enough times that, to your point,
Yeah.
it became a thing that if you were last to be served, you got Desiato. There were a couple of times where it was pretty egregious in a couple of instances, and it was a little frustrating, but it's
But it was
okay.
like never anything. What'd you get? Hamburger. It's like, did you get the daily special? No, I got a hamburger. It's like, it was just, for whatever reason, the universe saying, no, you get to wait.
Yeah, and it's like, look, we were a big group a lot of times, and we would go on a
Yes.
Saturday night, so I know it was busy. I am sympathetic to that, but it's like when
Yeah.
your entire group has been served and you're sitting there, a little frustrating. Thankfully, it didn't happen too many times, and at a certain point, I feel like it wasn't an issue anymore.
Yeah, it went away. It just whoever was served last was Desiatoed. That's what grew out of that.
Yeah, for sure. And then so you got to meet Rich Roney very early on, then too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was I mean, we're talking Rich Roney like over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Was he exactly the same as he is now?
Pretty much. Yeah, and I view that as a good thing. I think where later on, it was like it was the race. Who's going to get the Rich Roney seat? Because depending on where we were and whatnot, was there one Rich Roney seat? Was there two or three? That I remember that. But yeah, no, I've known Rich, a long time.
Yeah. And that consistency, Bill Mayo and I talk about this all the time that, there's great comfort in that. I mean, Rich has been such a steady, constant, consistent presence in our lives, as we've all, moved forward in life and have had, moves and marriages and kids and like all job change, like all kinds of stuff. And Rich is just like steady like a rock there throughout all of it, and always a great source of counsel and conversation. And see, I avoided friendship and fun. I was like, what else could I say? Yeah. We got to mix up our word choice a little bit. Yeah. Is there anyone over the years? I mean, again, I know you came in with your friends, but as you became part of the group, I mean, and not to single anyone out at the expense of others, but are there any folks at the store like you found you got like you particularly close to, like particularly strong bonds of friendship with? As much as we're all friends, we're all buddies, but anyone you really like, I really formed a strong bond with this person?
I'd say I've gotten very friendly with Sean, and actually Mike Santagorio and I. It's like as we talk about things, like we were the only two reading Valiant. We both went to the same college. It was like, geez Louise, we got like a mirror universe thing going on here. Other than the hairline, it's like, and I'm catching up. It's like, crap, are we separated at birth?
Yeah, and that's, I think, always one of the most beautiful things about the store is that it brings you into contact with people you might have all this stuff in common with, but you might not have ever met otherwise had it not been for the store. I just want to jump back to your kids for a second. Did they ever get into comics? Did you ever try to get them into it?
I never. What I would do is I would bring them with me, and when my son was little, he couldn't care boo about the comics, but the old statue showcase in the back, there was one of the statues that had what was Superman's dog? Crypto.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to see the dog. Like, okay, Hayden, you go see the dog. And as they grew older, if they wanted something, okay, get this, sure, anything to see if I could spark an interest. I mean, I remember there was one time with my son, he gathered all the stuff, I gathered mine. I was like, you're getting more than I am. And whoever was next to me wasn't someone I knew, just busted out laughing because you weren't expecting that. So, I exposed them. My daughter would read a little bit. She had a little more interest. They both followed a little bit, but no, they didn't. So far, they haven't gotten the bug that I have for it.
Are you okay with that, or is that any?
Yeah, no. Yeah. Each what I think is, you can expose your kids, but you got to let them pick. Because when I sit back and think about it, for as huge of a Star Wars fan as I was, I never made them, you have to watch this, you have to love this. I think, we watched Star Wars, we watched Empire Strikes Back, and we never got around to Return of the Jedi. So, there's a little part of me, I failed as a Star Wars father. But, what ended up being our things was Harry Potter or Avatar, the Aang version, the Last Airbender, that first Nickelodeon series, and those are the things that I watched with them. I mean, we watched some Clone Wars. I didn't think it sunk in as much, but it was on the TV one time, and Aiden was like, "Oh yeah, I used to love that." You did? Okay. So I exposed them, and we ended up we tried to get Aiden to read the books. I think his aunt bought him the books for like an airplane trip to Ireland. Like we could, you won't notice time. You'll read the books. You wouldn't touch them. So being good parents. Okay, look, if you read the first one, we'll give you $20. Bribe. That worked. You read the second one, we'll give you $10. Okay, rip through it. At that point, he was hooked, and he would pay us money. Let me read the next one. I'll pay you. And that's actually how I got back into reading, because I'd kind of fallen off because we kept hearing, oh, the third book, it's so dark. I was like, okay, fine, maybe I should read it before I let him into it. It's like, hey, this is good. So it would be a race. Whenever he would get a new one, I would start at the same time to see when would we finish. And eventually, we got to be, hey, you finished the book, we'll watch the movie. So those are the things we, latched onto. I think I might have went a little far afield from your question, so I apologize.
No, that was awesome to hear. And, that definitely tracks with my instinct, and also other advice I've gotten from fellow dads where, it's like, as Milo gets older, and he's 2 now, it's like, right. Yeah, I hope that, I'm able to share my love of these characters and these worlds with him. But it's like, if he's not into it, that's fine. Whatever he is into, I'll get on board with. And too, I mean, it's like, even if he doesn't read comics, I mean, these characters are everywhere. So like now, your kids, yes. Do your kids watch the movies and the TV shows?
Yes, actually, I do have I think it's a funny story. Hopefully you do as well. So my daughter latched onto the Marvel movies as soon as she could. So she pretty much watched all of them whenever they would show on, FX, for whatever reason would have them. She would plow through them. And it'd be like, hey, we should watch Winter Soldier. That might be the one movie my wife would enjoy, because there's enough spy and thriller that, you don't have to focus on the guys in the bright colors. You could just watch it as a spy thriller. But, she like plowed through it when she saw it. But anyway, and eventually my son latched on as well. And actually he would be the one, we got to see it opening weekend. I don't want to spoil it, where I'd get around to it. He's like, no, we got to go see it. So we're watching for Infinity War. So they're on, I'm going to mess up the name, but the planet with the Soul Stone, Voltamir, whatever that planet is.
Sure.
And, the Red Skull, shows up. And it's funny, they both had this different reaction. My daughter's like, what is he doing there? She'd watched all the movies. My son is, who the hell is that? Because he hadn't seen the earlier Marvel movies. He jumped on somewhere, I guess, phase 2 or 3. So it was funny, like, in one ear I got the shock of, oh my God. And the other I got the, who the hell is that?
What about the DC movies? I didn't hear anything about those.
No, we didn't latch. I mean, well, I think there was one Christmas where they each, picked a movie, and I think my daughter or one of them picked Suicide Squad. So we watched that, and that's not bad. I think it's more. It has very interesting characters. The movie doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense, but between Will Smith, Deadshot, I think that is the is right, and I'm drawing a blank on who plays Harley Quinn.
Margot Robbie.
Her performance, those, and Viola Davis for Walker. The characters are really interesting. Hey, I want to see what happens. The rest of the story around it is like, wait, what? Huh? So there was. Yeah, no, we really didn't get into the DCs, and for as much as a Green Lantern fan I was, from what I saw of the Ryan Reynolds stuff, is like, yeah, no, I don't need to see it.
Yeah, I don't disagree about Suicide Squad. From what we've heard, it sounds like there was a lot of behind the scenes, interference and reshooting. Green Lantern 2 was, I don't think it was horrible, but it definitely was not as strong as it could have been or as it needed to be. Are you looking forward to the HBO Max series that they're planning?
Yeah, I mean, that's where the pain point is like, I can't subscribe to every subscription that's out there, so it's like, I'm interested. I'm definitely interested. It's like, I don't know, do I wait for it all to come out and see if I can get like a month's promo or something and plow through it that way? I don't know what I do for season 2, but it'd get me season 1. But yeah, no, that does look interesting.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that. And again, while I didn't hate the Ryan Reynolds movie, but it definitely fell short. And so I am curious now, with all the time that's passed, the improvements in visual effects, like all that stuff. The idea of, them being able to tell the story over, a season, or however many seasons it runs for. Yeah, there's a lot about it that, I'm like cautiously optimistic about. It would be cool to see. I mean, especially a property like that where, you read the comics and it's like, even with visual effects, it's like, man, like that's tough to really nail, like all those ring constructs and everything. And so, I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, with what they can do with CGI, I think you could get a good number of the constructs that are quote unquote standard, the giant punching glove, the Gatling gun, the robot, I think you can do that now.
Yeah. What about, I know we talked about, comic shops, but, and pandemic aside, what about conventions? Are you like a regular convention goer, right?
Depends how you define regular. I do the NYCC, and I started going the one in Jersey, East Coast Comic Con. Yeah, those haven't really traveled for them. Every now and again I wonder maybe I should, but usually it's the New York Comic Con, and then with the East Coast Comic Con, I would, they're close, and that's so close, how can I not?
Do you have a desire to do like San Diego?
If I was out there, maybe, but like to go specifically for it, I don't know. I think some of the Comic Con or conventions I see, like there was one in Jersey, and it was more an entertainment one, but it was the voices of the Animaniacs, which, absolutely brilliant cartoon. I just couldn't fit it in. It's like, oh my God, I get to meet the voices. Like, that kind of got me thinking, well, maybe I could travel a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's been so long without one. It's like, first when it comes up, it's like, okay, I'll go.
Yeah, it's funny because I've done San Diego twice now, and it was an experience. And it's the sort of thing where if there's any part of you that's like, oh, I really would love to do it at some point, then sure, I think it's worth it, I suppose. But I don't know, if you're not that keen on it, or if you're kind of on the fence, New York has gotten so big that, obviously San Diego does have even more of that, Hollywood influence. And, San Diego itself is gorgeous, so,
yeah.
So kind of to your point, I do think that if, you were able to kind of like tie the convention into like a family vacation or a work trip or like whatever it might be, that might be the way to go. Like again, I'm not so gung ho on cons generally, and certainly like that one that I would be like, you gotta, jump through all these hoops to get a flight and get a hotel and get tickets and go through all of that. But I've also gone, so I guess so I don't know. Like if you haven't gone and you do have any desire, but maybe you'll make it out there at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll have to, you never know what'll happen.
Yeah. Before we wrap up here, any alternate realities, memories, anecdotes, and again, especially having shopped there for as long as you did, like anything that whether we've talked about it on the show or not, just to get your perspective on it would be interesting, but anything that like really stands out to you that you wanted to share?
Well, it's more of an after effect, but so the store's been closed for 6 years. I live not all that far away from it, so I'm forever going up Central Avenue. I would say it took me a good 5 years to stop turning my head. Just by muscle memory, I would know just to see, hey, is Steve there? Oh, no, it's not there anymore. 5 years. It was that much ingrained to me to see, hey, Steve burning midnight oil is back when I used to know Rich's car because it used to be the Pontiacs, is Rich there? It took 5 years for me to stop turning my head just on instinct.
Wow.
So that, one thing, I don't know. It was a boatload of everything. It was, going back to use a paper I think you wrote in high school, you kind of equated it to Cheers.
Right.
You went in, everyone was happy to see you, and, from, what other people have said, it's like, you'd go to the store and see what's going on, see who's going to be see, is there dinner going on? Or are people going to a movie? It was this central hub, or, like we've all said before, the clubhouse. Yeah, no, I can't. It was a whole boatload of everything. It is, maybe not what you're looking for. I can't right now. I can't boil it down to one. Once the podcast is over, I'll think of all these, discrete examples. But right now, it's just everything. And then, sometimes you get the feeling that Steve doesn't feel like he made an impact. And I know for him it was different because he was running. We got to enjoy the clubhouse. He was running, he was running it. The fact that, we're still talking about the place 6 years after it's gone, there's still friendships. Are we as tight as we used to be? No, part of that is life moves on. Part of it is it's gone, but the store is gone. But I think it's an incredible thing that, for that 20 some odd years, enough of us built enough connections and whatnot that we're still willing to talk to each other, still going to hang out. We've been to each other's, weddings, wakes, good, bad, or indifferent. We've all been in each other's lives, and we still, even after the store, we're still, there's still a connection.
Well said. And I really, I identify with that and I agree with it. And that's something that I've definitely been coming to terms with. And that's actually a perfect segue because the next episode is the finale of the LongAR Halloween. And I'll be joined once again by Dr. Bill Mayo. And, he and I do lament the loss of the space because it meant so much to us. And that was, I think, like you hit on, I mean, having that dedicated place to go fostered, these friendships, just that time that you're able to spend in the same place together. But it's like, yeah, the bonds are so strong that, when you do connect with someone, you're able to pick up where you left off. And even if it's not the regular contact, if you need the person, they'll be there. And that really is a powerful, special thing. And so, yeah, no, it doesn't play out exactly the same way it used to before, but it is still really powerful and special in its own way. It's just something, different now.
Yeah.
And as far as on the road, this is different than your experience, but it's not that that's when I miss AR the most, but like there are a lot of instances where whether I'm driving on Central or, I'm on a highway that's parallel to it. And I think about how in the past, like I would hop off at this exit and I would pass by the store and, just pass some time and see who's there. It's like, those are some of the moments where it does hit me when I'm like, oh, I wish it was still there that I could just drop in on it.
Yeah. It's definitely, there's this might be too far, there's an AR shaped hole,
Yeah. No, I hear you. And I know our audience has been with us on this journey, and I think they they know it and they feel it as well. Well, listen, Pete, thank you for coming on for our Labor Day episode. I'm glad that we got to do this and we got to catch up. That's so awesome about your son. Really best of luck to him at Georgetown and your daughter as she completes her high school journey and starts her college search. I hope that everything goes well and goes smoothly.
I hope so as well. But no, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. No, you got it. So thank you very much, Pete. Thank you to our audience. And next episode is our big finale. We'll be joined once again by Dr. Bill Mayo when Halloween occurs once again. So make sure that you come back for our finale. It'll be a lot of fun, and I'm sure it'll be a special conversation between Bill and myself. So make sure that you come back for that. And until then, remember, don't be a flat squirrel. My Comic Shop History is a Flat Squirrel production. Art by Philtastic Filmenza, music by Basic Printer. If you like what you heard, be sure to listen to Digging for Kryptonite. Sign up for exclusive content at patreon.com/Anthony Desiato and watch My Comic Shop Country on Amazon, Apple TV, and CuriosityStream.